What? Okay, there's some bands that do their beat based on like computers or something. What kind of music is it?
Drum and bass.
That's it? Do you guys, no one sings or anything? It's just beat? What's the name of your band?
Rush Optical.
That's it. Okay. There's no one else?
This is Rush Optical on Miami Beach, sun factor 60, because we're pretty blue-skinned. Who are we flying with? B8? I don't know.
What's the scene like in Zurich then?
It's really good actually, it's one of the best in Europe. Switzerland and Belgium really seem to be sort of on fire at the moment.
We're flying at what, 11? Yeah. Got to get up at 9. Yeah. 4 hours kip, at the most.
We were both sort of at that stage where we just started doing our own thing separately in the drum and bass scene as a whole. And we were both doing okay at that point, but I think it's because we had a lot in common. We hooked up in the years leading up to that. I'd worked on a lot of other kind of music, not as much drum and bass, but I'd worked in the studio as producing.
I did the prototype thing, Kilimanjaro, and some no U-turn stuff, yeah, with Nico obviously. Was a lot of sort of the background stuff that I did before, hooked up with Matty here.
97, 98, 99, important years for us to like establish what we were doing. We finished our first album and that was doing well, and I've worked with Groove Rider on his album that year, and that turned out pretty good as well. So
I think the V release was quite important for
us
as well.
I mean, there was a lot of...
The Function track opened the door. Our music was then accessible to a few more people, I think, because a lot of the stuff we made before that was pretty hard and pretty specialist, I think.
If you actually collected all the tunes you've ever made up and put them in like compartments of whether they were dark or not, then you might get a third in the dark corner.
The first few tracks that we made, or the tracks that our names were established upon, were in that sort of vein. But you can't go on making that music for 10 years because you're going mad.
I think our DJ sets define like us musically as well as what we've released, and like if you listen to that right the way throughout the years, if you can get tapes from right when we started to right now, it's always been about mixing funky stuff with hard music. It's not middle of the road kind of sound. It's like it's balls out, having fun, and you know what I mean?
I was DJing before I started producing things, yeah. I mean, it was probably the first time I went to a club. I was like just so blown away by sort of, the power and the influence that a good DJ can have on an evening. I went to an illegal spiral tribe party in a field in Oxford, and just on the spur of a moment with a group of friends picked me up and took me off in the car, and that was it. I was hooked.
Really, the first things I got paid to do is production. We used to DJ for fun,
but we didn't think of it as like, oh, we're going to be DJs, you know what I mean, or we're going to be this or that. It's just, it was a hobby for both of us at the start, I think.
So I grew up like listening to electro and hip hop, and also the pirate radio stations in London again were like a big influence.
I used to listen to strictly hip hop, really, like early EPMD stuff and third bass and early NWA, that sort of stuff. But it was the beats from hip hop that originally got me, into the drum and bass thing, because I was hearing the same breaks again, just a lot faster and in a UK sort of format as well.
This is DJ Fresh. My favourite Rush Optical tunes, a very, very difficult decision to make, but it would probably have to be Alien Girl, Compound, Gas Mask. Those three. Somewhere in the middle of those three, I don't know, you can pick one. I think that Ben and Matt came along at a time when the scene was very, it was a lot more kind of ragga influenced, a lot more sort of dub influenced, and they really brought techno into drum and bass in a way that sounded deep and serious and not like trance.
My parents were quite influential in getting me into music. My dad was always playing loud music, and he had a Rockola, like original 60s jukebox in the front room, which obviously when I was a kid it just towered above me.
You know, if they go into their mum and dad's record collection, I think they'll find something to influence them, you know, even if it's the most straight music ever, you know. Well, I like the violin, the drums, guitar, but on and off, like all the drums mainly I stuck with.
I learnt the drums at school, but that was the only one that interested me the most. I couldn't be bothered with the whole piano thing. I mean, that's kind of wish now that I had.
Yeah, probably did play the recorder talking like 5 years old.
Did at school. They made you, didn't they?
Yeah. London's Burning on the recorder.
Yeah.
You got to remember that.
I know what you're thinking, but don't give up.
Drum and bass is trying to diversify, maybe attract a different crowd a little bit.
I don't know. I think it's just maybe the people that have been making drum and bass for a while are naturally progressing into other arenas. I think once you've been producing a music for 7 or 8 years, it's only natural to want to maybe try and do something else.
Ben and myself have done quite a few tracks that are on a slower kind of breakbeat vibe.
The breaks formula is actually quite similar to drum and bass anyway, isn't it? It's all just dance floor instrumental with big drops and good sounding mixes. You know, I hear some breaks DJs really switching it up, like Adam Freeland. He started playing Aretha Franklin or something like that right in the middle of his set. Sometimes it can work, depends on the crowd and where you are and the circumstances.
What new tracks have you got for tonight?
Quite a few things that I don't have a clue what they are. They just sort of came in during the week over the internet on AIM. Don't know who it's by or whatever. There's just a title, whatever.mp3. That's all you know. Sometimes it can be anything up to 40 in a week.
Right, if we really like a track, we can obviously start thinking about it for our label.
There have been so few signings on Virus Recordings because we're quite particular about the sound of the label and the way it's portrayed and stuff like that.
A lot of these sort of kids that have been on their laptops for 2 or 3 years are now really, really getting into it and are getting a great sound and a good mix down. So you are finding sort of big tunes cropping up from anywhere.
Yeah, every once in a while a little gem will come through that you hope hasn't been sent out to everyone else, but inevitably 9 times out of 10 it has.
It's a lot more immediate now. You can have stuff that just finished and like literally they get it over to you within like 10 minutes of finishing the tune. So
Can I have a token axe? We're pulling up to the airport now. I'm fucking too wired. I need to get a bit brain numbed.
I get high before you fly.
For me, a typical day in the week is to get up and deal with the distribution and label bits for a few hours in a day, and then if we can get in the studio, and if not, I'm probably playing poker or I'm with my son, my son and my wife.
Weekend, literally the weekend is either motorway, airport, and then clubs.
Yeah, clubs.
That's it. Maybe 3 hours, 4 hours sleep I get on a Friday, Saturday night. And then Sunday's usually travelling home if I've been away in Europe. And Monday, forget it. Monday's a shabba day.
Favourite Ed Rush Optical track? Resurrection?
No.
I'm really bad with track names. No, it's not Wailani. I know one of my favourites is Virus 1, both sides. The B-side, which the name's lost me completely, and probably Compound as well. I was into that because there's that little bit in that. too many tunes those guys have put out to even name one. I'd say probably half their back catalogue would be instrumental in me sitting there going, I want to make tunes. There's a whole army of people around the world who are deep into that sound and probably always will be, and there's lots of producers, new guys that are sort of doing that style, so it'll probably burn forever. So good on them.
A little bit easier going for us this year than some years, but we've been having some fun.
We just had like 24 drum and bass heads all in the same lift, which is quite a rare occurrence. Nice to see everyone together.
We had a really good party, which was the Viram party. It was very successful. Nice. Yeah, it was good.
Although we're all involved in the same scene, we very rarely actually get to see each other, especially all at the same time. So that's what makes this time of year quite special for us, really. We all get to hang out and have a laugh, get pissed.
When we first started travelling anywhere you went, you were just amazed, you know, like Japan and places like that. You were so far from home.
I mean, the most mind-blowing place I've been is Tokyo, I think, just for like the sheer scale and just how crazy it is there, like a Blade Runner movie, do you know what I mean? So
difficult it is to get weed.
There's that as well.
First time we went to Puerto Rico and we played in a rainforest party, which was in a cave, which is an amazing place, but you know, they're absolutely having it out there as well.
This is if you're fortunate enough to spend some time there. People are like, oh, how was Tokyo? And you're like, well, I saw the hotel room and the club and the airport, and that's about it really, yeah, and subways, but that's how it is.
Novotel. Abyss, no, it's Novotel.
It's an Abyss, you know. One of the two.
Novotel.
It says Abyss outside.
Favourite Ed Rush? Not well. To be honest, I mean, we were talking before. I know it's more optical. I don't know if Shape the Future counts. I mean, for me, it's just that was one of those definitive tracks of the early days of drum and bass, and something that meant so much to a lot of people. So that was really my favourite track. Well, there's few people, you know, that have really meant so much to the scene and had so many people trying to copy their sound and their whole thing, and I think that they're two people that are a perfect example of that. Do you know what I mean? Pioneers of a sound.
It's good here, really good. The clubs are all nice. There's a lot of money in this country, obviously, so they spend a lot of their money and care goes into entertainment.
You can buy weed in shops here, the flower shops. During the day up till about 5 o'clock you can go in a shop that sells flowers and buy weed from them here, legally.
I was notorious for having crazy things happen to us. We was in a crazy storm in south of France in a festival that just blew the whole stage away.
We got to the airport there, like the stage just got hit by lightning, so it's cancelled.
Oh fuck!
Remember that?
I've had to DJ. I think it was in Australia in the desert, so I was just stood in the penetrating sunshine, and literally, if you put a record on the turntable, within 2 minutes, it was warping like that. So that was the quickest mixing I've ever done in my life. 30-second drop and then bang with the next one, because literally your whole tunes are been wrecked.
I remember your brother flooded his bedroom once in a hotel and I had to help him get out of it.
You've got to go down to the front desk and go, it just exploded everywhere, there's water everywhere. When you left the bath running, you went out for the night.
Came back 6 hours later and his room's like 3 inches deep in water. Excuse me, I need to change rooms, please.
And I was in a hotel in Miami and there was a hurricane that came along into the room and they're like, nothing to worry about, sir. They started nailing up boards over the windows. Just stay in your room.
I knocked myself out on a monitor in Scotland, didn't I, when I was standing up. Yeah. I knocked myself cold out on stage.
Aside from that,
Like had the whole club rigs blow up on us completely till they were off, and that was it, the end of the night. I don't know if we're supposed to be proud of that, but we've done a lot of bad things to our MCs along the way, actually, I should say. Thanks, Rhyme Time.
we cooked Rhyme Time medium rare in his hotel room once with like onion rings and American cheese on him.
He tied everything in the hotel room to his feet and his trousers belt.
Iron and the ironing board. So when he woke up and moved, the ironing board would fall on him with the iron and shit. And
Smoking cigarettes up his nose when he's sleeping.
like a Benson in each nostril. And you can see him fully toking on them as he's like, they glow red and it's classic. He didn't cough either. Just happily smoking 2 Bensons in his sleep. See, now that's bad. That's awful.
We used to do tours in America. We would make our tours in America like a month long, every day, and just blast it off. Like in the end, like, I've been sick quite a few times. He's been sick quite a few times just from like doing too much, you know.
Yeah.
I think 6 days was the longest I didn't sleep for, and I was hallucinating at the end of it, and like just mumbling, and had to wheel me around in the airport and the trolley and all that kind of thing. I can see where the attitude towards DJs comes from sometimes, because everyone thinks you must be really arrogant and horrible and sort of all that, but you just shown up after not sleeping for 6 days. You should try it. It's not easy to be nice to people.
This is Total Science, and our favourite Rush Optical tune is Live Process, the other side of the Matrix thing. On the, was it a remix? Okay, right.
But anyway, it was bad.
Why? Because it was fucking quality.
But, but to be honest with you, most of my favourite ones was actually not released. Lee had like a load of them on tape.
Like, what's the difference between a Killer and any one of us? So, did that ever come out? It never came out. That was bad. There was like, yeah. At the end of the day, they were instrumental in the formation of the scene as it is today, and respect for that.
For several occasions, I'm sure they all think they're the only one, but girls have come up and gone, have a look at this, and they've pulled down their pants and they've got Virus logo tattooed on their backside, and like I've actually seen more than 5 of those, I think. So I'm sorry, girls, but you're not original. We had this one girl who wanted to be on the front cover of the record, and she had her tits pierced with virus things for her nipples. And she wanted us to take a picture for her front cover.
Weird request though. I can't. None really spring to mind though. To be honest with you, I mean, you get the obvious like stupid request for records, but that's like, you know, can you play Robbie Williams or something like that?
I've had all the weird, weird tune requests. You know, like people who don't realise they're in the drum and bass parties at all. What about the time we were playing in Paris with when they were breakdancing? And the promoter came running up to the decks, we were DJing, and he was like ripped the needle off the record, and he was like, give me the microphone, like this. And he's like, you down there,
singled out this one.
You stop breakdancing. This is a drum and bass party. Like this.
And he turned to us and went, he has no respect for you or your music. Look at him breakdancing. We're like, what are you talking about? He's having a good time.
No more breakdancing, you understand?
Yeah, this poor kid in front of like 1,000 people in this hall. It's like, and this is the promoter.
That was a funny occasion for sure.
Do you see yourself DJing when you're 50?
I used to say no way, never. I'd be like doing something like my, folks are, or just going to be a normal person or whatever. But as I get older, maybe, you never know, it might still be there.
There's always a studio for us. You know, there's always a way, you can always express yourself by producing.
Like, what do you do when you've like been a DJ for 15 years? Like, what do you say to people when you want a job? I didn't go to college, but I'm very good at mixing records.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I mean, I don't know what we do really. So we might as well hang on as long as we can.
I can always retire to America and play in poker tournaments the rest of my life. Win a couple of mil one day maybe, you never know.
Yeah,
if you're there on the right day. If you get the Greyhound bus, right, to Atlantic City from Philadelphia, they give you a coupon on the ticket, which you take to casino, and they give you the price of your bus ticket back. So you basically get there for free.
Last time we were down there a couple of months ago, we went to a tournament with like 120 odd people, no limit, Texas Hold'em.
My King's got busted by a Jack Queen. That's an injustice. I was heartbroken for 2 days.
My beat was the worst. I reckon my beat is the worst, man. The guy put me all in because he knew that I was short stacked. I had $12,000 left. And this guy must have had about $30,000.
The average was about 20 at that stage. Yeah.
The guy turns over, he's got Queen 10, right? So he had 9, 10 Jack Queen, which is 4 cards to a straight, which is basically not a hand. And I had 3 jacks, which is like a really good hand. So I was like, yeah, stood up. I was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna win this one. And then the next card that came out was an 8. So he had 8, 9, 10 Jack Queen, and he had a straight. So that was it. He done me. I had to just get up and leave. Worst thing that happened to me in months. I sensed the wind coming on. Do you know what I mean? But that's the way it goes.
This is NTSC from Ram Records, and I haven't got one favourite Ed Rush and Optical tune. It's got to be an album, the whole album, Wormhole. I mean, when it come along, it was just so fresh, and I've got to say every tune on there is an absolute classic, you know, timeless. You can go back to it again and again, and they just brought a whole new sound. And I used to call them juggernaut rollers because they're so heavy and rolling out, and every sound that they used was just, you know, very clinical and precise, and really brought a vibe to the whole thing. So for me, it's the whole Wormhole album.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Good vibe, man. Wicked sound systems over here. You can't go wrong, man. I'm telling you, my ears are fucking. You had earplugs and you kept pushing it up. He normally has these different ones in that just filter out the harmful decibels.
Couldn't hear shit without turning it up. I did basically, I had my fingers in there.
I feel like I've been in the ring with Tyson. My ears have been bitten off. Both of them.
Definitely, it's always good over here.
I thought we did alright.
It was 3 hours, it's hard to be like bang all the way through, do you know what I mean? So you got to kind of bring it up and down a bit.
Because it's the hardest hour is the third one. The first 2 go pretty quick if everything goes smooth.
Respect to your party, man.
You keep the people there.
The sound system here is brilliant. And I thought by now it might be knackered out, but it seems to be holding up pretty well. But weird, I thought this was weird, it's a big lump of hash.
Yeah.
We got any tobacco?
This hash seems to be like some serious high-grade hash.
Swiss hash.
Swiss hash.
Now that is what I'm talking about. So I've got any Rizla?
You probably know who this is by now, and this is our studio. We have the shabbiest studio in drum and bass. Take a look.
Look at the dust under that sampler, it's terrible. Look at that, London grime.
When we buy a new piece of equipment, we tip an ashtray into it first. That's our tip for getting a good sound. How do you make your beats heavy? Start with good samples. That is the absolute key. Like, it's no use taking what you think is an alright beat and you'll make it better.
Sound good with the EQs.
You're not.
It has to sound good before you even start.
You need to actually go and find the beat that's much fatter than the one you want to end up with, because you're not going to end. Whatever sample you take is never going to have as much presence as, say, the place you got it from. I mean, I don't personally use compression on beats at all, and I think compression will give you spiky beats that makes, like, they won't be loud, but they'll be loud as far as cutting the beats is concerned. Say this green line here is like the loudest that you can cut something, then all of these little spiky bits here, if you got rid of them, then your whole track could go up louder. Cutting into vinyl or cutting onto a CD, they'll have to turn your mix overall down because of the spiky bits that come out. One of the good ways of doing it is in the sampler is just to turn it up past the top of the gain. So like if you normalise it plus 5%, so it's 105% instead of 100, it'll knock off all those little bits and the whole sample will be louder just because of that. It won't sound any different at all. That sounds like it's got little clicks in it. I think it's important to leave a bit of a loop in your, everything like a drum machine programmed, because it will sound like a drum machine. It won't have a particularly like rolling beat. Like you start with maybe a 1 bar loop which can go around in a loop on the computer, and then you can fill it in with like much heavier sounds and you will still have the sound of the original break you started with, but it will also have the weight you need to make a drum and bass tune. Couple of things have been instantaneous. I mean, the keyboards like that one, the Oscar over there, we were playing SOCOM a little bit earlier on. That was, every sound in that tune was made off that keyboard. It's got analog oscillators here, just like all most analog keyboards do, which makes really basic noises. And then it's got all these digital waveforms as well, which you can add into the analog oscillators, and that's why it makes an unusual sound. It reminds me of a Ford Cortina my dad used to own. And I found out a bit about the guy who made it. It's him and his wife and his mum or something, and they were like Oxford in a little, they had a unit down there, and they were just churning these things out. The fact is, the parts inside this, they're not made anymore. Those, like, got people making replicas of them. It's with modern equipment, and it's just something about it. It's not the same. It's just not the same
at all.
No, like that's why I dread getting this thing fixed, because one day they might replace the oscillators. And then I know it's all over. It won't sound the same anymore. This Pro 1 over here is constantly making,
that's
like,
responsible for a lot of the virus bass sounds and a lot of the virus sounds that you hear.
and you can feed external sounds through it as well, so you can make a lot of sounds that you couldn't make with any other analog keyboard, you know. That's the key to it, really.
And it looks great. I mean, look at that mahogany down the side. You gotta love it.
We sampled everything, you know, stuff we've done on microphones with like knocking spoons together, and most of the good samples come from funk tunes or some of the more musician orientated albums from the 70s, you know.
Most of the beats and stuff we have already here. Like 9 times out of 10 we're gonna use a beat that we know sort of works and has been tried and tested.
I mean, sometimes we spend a day just collecting sounds from somewhere. You know, so that's sometimes a good thing to do, so that when you go to make a tune, you've got lots of stuff to start with. Yeah, if you start with a record, say someone else has made like a house tune, not in your genre, and you take a loop of it or something, you can start to lay stuff over the top of it, and quite often we'll take out the original sample and be left with what we've, you know, a tune kind of thing, which we'll work on from there. Sometimes we'll leave it in. You might as well get over the idea that you're nicking something, do you know what I mean? Because if you can make a drum and bass tune out of it, it's a tune. Don't mash your ears up.
Don't turn it up. Oh God, it's true. That's the best bit of advice you'll ever hear.
It's like working in a car shop. There's a lot of dangerous machinery lying around in the wrong hands.
It's like over time, you know, one day it will happen where it just goes, and you wake up the next day and it's whoosh for like 6 months. We both mashed our ears up on the same day, on the same session, after having just spent months on tour on the road, and then it was one day we were working on a track on the Creeps, just with horrible mid-range filters, like just going up and down. It was too much. And then the next day we were both woke up, called him, I was like, "Are your ears ringing?" He's like, "Yeah," and it didn't go away.
Anyway, that's the safety tip, yeah. But as far as as far as learning stuff in the studio, I think it's constant. It is a constant process. No one, right up to the best engineers in the world, have finished learning everything. Like the most important thing about bass in mixing down terms for drum and bass is that it's got to be mono. Because in a club, like, you've got stacks of speakers, and if they're stereo and you've got things that are like panned over here and there, then they're going to be quiet in a lot of the areas of the club, except for the people standing by that one stack of speakers. Like 200 hertz down, like, you don't want any stereo in that area, because if the cutting needle on the vinyl has to cut stereo in that frequency, it crosses over the lines and breaks the cutting head. It's because it's trying to cut on one side, then the other side, then the other side, like this, the needle, instead of going like this in the groove, which is what it should do. It's going, and it breaks it. So we've broken one in the past. got in trouble.
And they're expensive, aren't they? They're
like $7,000, so the cutting room's not going to be very happy with you at all. So, and also, if the cutting engineer's any good, he's going to notice it, and he's going to say either he won't cut your tune or he will, but really low volume. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, you've really got to be careful of that. So, any effects you put on a bass line, you must make sure you've got to take out, or use a filter to take out the bass end of the effect. That is the key to getting it loud, is to have a dead centre bass line. Usually you've got to play something a few weeks, different places, see if it matches up on like lots of different club rigs and stuff like that before you know like something's good.
One of the best testing grounds for me, I think, is the car, because it's a sound that you're so familiar with because you spend so many hours in there listening to music. It's always good to test a mix out. I mean, it's obviously not a club, but it's good to test a mix out in the car or on a system that you're very familiar with.
Well, I think that's the idea behind those NS10 speakers. Yeah, so that's why they're the classic studio speakers in a way. Is that if you can make it sound good on them, then it sounds amazing.
On a radio alarm clock, even.
You've really got to work it to make it sound good on those things. And that, you'd be really pleasantly surprised when you hear it anywhere else. Well, it makes it a lot more funny. Yeah, I mean, it kind of helps you create a vibe, because like you're making music for people going out at night, having a few drinks and whatever, and being in a club, and you're trying to make music for those people and for yourself when you're going out. So if you can't just be all like straight and come in the morning and start going bang 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 with the beats, you know what I mean? It doesn't really work like that. You got to get on a bit of a vibe in the afternoon, maybe have a couple of joints, like some people totally make music on a different level from us. Obviously, like my brother's a prime example. He doesn't need anything like that. He just can make his music, totally happily, like straight, which is great. That's good. I'd recommend that as opposed to the way we do it, which is a lot less healthy
and more expensive.
So when was the last time you tried to write a tune without smoking?
For me, it was just when I met Rush. It was just before. I was actually quite. I was going straight at that time. Yeah, I did.
I was like, nah, come on, you don't want to stop that.
I think actually the DJs whine and all that about their travelling schedule, and most people probably think, oh, shut up, you're having a laugh. But it is quite hard as well, and like you do find yourself just so tired, you're just like, oh god, I'll just smoke a joint, I feel a lot better. Do you know what I mean? That's the full answer.
sitting high up in the Sierra Mountains and you're drinking, what you drinking? Champagne cocktail. And you're passing judgment on how I run my thing. Are you sitting high up in the Sierra Mountains and you're drinking, what you drinking? Champagne cocktail. And you're passing judgment on how I run my thing.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's a good vibe, man. Wicked sound systems over here, you can't go wrong.
Just relax now.